and I do want to get to some breaking news that we are following coming in just moments ago here, as Israeli Defense Forces say they found the body of a hostage taken in Hamas's October 7th attack. Israeli forces say they found Yehudit Weiss's body in a building adjacent to the Shifa hospital, which Israel says Hamas had been using as a headquarters until early this week. The IDF did not offer any details about Weiss beyond her name, but noted that her family has officially been contacted. I want to talk more about this and the implications here, so let's bring in Robert D'Amico, a retired FBI agent, former member of the FBI hostage rescue team who worked with the Joint Special Operations Command on overseas hostages, and the founder of Sierra One Consulting. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.
When you hear that the body of a hostage has been found, no real details released just yet, but we know that it was one of the hostages taken on that October 7th attack. And then we know that an IDF soldier's body, according to Hamas, was also found just days ago. What goes through your mind as somebody who does work in the sort of field with helping in these negotiations?
Unfortunately, we've seen it before. Kayla Mueller back in Syria. We know that she was killed by ISIS, and they propped it to look like it was a military op that we had done for misinformation. And I think this one, they're really going to have to see like how she was killed. The Israeli medical examiners will know. We know which weapons they carry. We'll look at the wounds that had killed her to really determine, was it done during an op that they were going in, or was it one of the guards that was guarding her saw this operation happening and killed her instead of having her fall back into the Israeli hands in an unnegotiated thing. So unfortunately, I was afraid some of these would happen as they start doing military ops. They may come across more. Some of them may have been killed during the abduction. And I talked about those were so violent. People were trying to escape all during the phase, maybe before they got to the tunnels and were killed. So again, they're going to have to start looking into when she actually died, and then how she died to really piece it together. Was it part of the op? But I mean, they're still responsible. Even she, was being held, and then the Israelis came in. It will be interesting to see, though, was she killed by a guard or something that happened from external?
We know with Noah Marciano, that 19-year-old IDF soldier that was killed, and at this point, the video is released showing her body, according to Hamas. When something like this happens and they do say it's an Israeli airstrike, the IDF hasn't really responded to that. They have just said that, the body was found at this point. Is that what you'd expect? Do you think that they're going to comment on it, or do they want to look into it themselves? I mean, do they want to investigate, or do they want to kind of keep that close to the vest for now?
I would say that they're going to have to openly talk about it. I think Israel was a little bit surprised at the information war and how it went to Hamas's side. And I think they're playing catch up. I think any large government like the U.S. or Israel has that same thing, because you're always afraid to release facts out there. It's part of an investigation. You don't want to be too quick to do things. But what we found out in the Afghan war in Iraq was, if we weren't aware of that and were willing to make comments quickly, then it gave the enemy the ability to win the information war. I remember General Miller had said, we have to win the information war before we do anything tactically, and we have to prepare for it, because you can win tactically, and if you lose on the propaganda side, you almost lost. It's kind of like Tet Offensive in '68. It was a tactical victory, but it was a strategic loss for the U.S. So I think Israel has to get in there, make a very quick determination. You can tell a death by airstrike compared to something else. Make that determination quickly, get that information back out, have the facts to support it, so that they can get in front of those. Because I think they're going to be more.
Well, and that leads to my next question here. There's always concern about the hostages and their safety, but does this situation here lead to an increased concern for these hostages?
It's always been out there. Anytime you have hostages in a war zone, you have to look at that complication of, if you're doing military ops, are you doing them in a way where the hostage is being kept? I was hoping they were, underground in tunnels. It seems to be one of the safest places. It's also the hardest to do a rescue in. So they're going to have to start weighing that. There have been a couple hostages that were killed in Pakistan by airstrikes. We didn't know where the hostages were, and bombs were being dropped. So it does happen anytime you have hostages out there. If they have any intel that a group of hostage or even a single hostage is being held somewhere, I think you're going to see it then that they're going to gauge that operation to do the hostage rescue first, followed by the regular forces. And we did that in Iraq when we thought there was a hostage being held. The Army or Navy special mission units went in, did the hostage rescue attempt as the conventional forces then came in. That way you can get out in front of it, rescue the hostage, get them out of that then general war zone.
What were your thoughts, and was it surprising when you saw that Hamas had released a video actually showing the body of Noah Marciano, that 19-year-old IDF soldier? Is that something that would normally happen as, I guess, kind of a propaganda video to put out there to people?
So the hostage takers are always going to use pressure to get what they want. So if they're not moving forward in negotiations where they want, they start putting pressure by releasing videos, trying to appeal to the families, knowing it's going to make the government job even harder. So when we do negotiation, we always try to separate the family from the hostage takers, because the family, I mean, it's an emotional thing. Your loved ones being held and things are possibly happening to them that you don't want. But you always have to look at a bigger picture on how those things come in. Is one of the most dangerous in the world. So that may not be the answer. But with these, they are going to put pressure on the Israelis by showing pictures. I think the kids are being held for their most wanted negotiation point. And if it's not going their way, I think you're going to start seeing more videos into the victims of the hostages being held in order to turn up pressure on Israel to try to get the country segregated even more on what they should do: ceasefire, negotiate, or go on the offensive. I mean, Netanyahu this Sunday talked about how the Hamas really didn't even start negotiating for hostages until the ground war. Well, I'm not sure that the Hamas didn't want the ground war to start. I think they wanted it to get on that information side, and that was something that they weren't even going to negotiate before that ground war started. I think they wanted that. Now they're looking maybe to stop the ground war. You may start seeing more negotiations for it.
And so that begs the question here, because we know that there's been talks about possibly trading off 50 of the hostages, women and children, for basically not a ceasefire, but kind of a pause in the fire there. Is that likely to actually happen here? That's been proposed by Hamas, and Netanyahu is apparently considering it. But is that possible that that would even happen?
I think it's possible. In these, you see whatever's possible, but it has to fit. Both sides have to feel that they're getting something. And there may be side deals. Like the Qataris may be promising Hamas something that Israel and the Americans don't even know about, because they know it's going to take a little bit extra in order to get that. And Qatar wants this to happen. Same thing with Americans. We may be promising things on the side in order to get the hostages released. So there's all kinds of different plays going on. And every time someone, even if Hamas is releasing information, there's a purpose to releasing that information. This is all calculated. It is all something that they thought about, that they're doing in order. Like Netanyahu talking on Sunday, if he really didn't want to talk about it, he wouldn't have. There was a reason he was talking about it. He wanted to get his point across. So all these are just plays back and forth, trying to get to where they get to an agreement that they both can agree on. But I think you're going to see something. I think it's going to be a group. 50 sounds something that is large enough to talk Israel into doing a pause, I think.
All right. Robert D'Amico, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us and help break all of this down. Obviously, developments, as I always say, coming in pretty much on an hourly basis. Is there anything else that you want to add before I let you go?
No, this is one of the most personal things that can happen. And I think everyone's seeing that within this war, that these hostages are bringing, because everyone has loved ones that they can put in their place. And I think that was part of Hamas's strategy when they took them. They did this invasion knowing what was going to happen. They knew Israel was going to hit back hard. But they also had a very purposeful meaning to take hostages, and I think this is one of them.
All right, Robert, thank you again for taking the time to be here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.